Welcome, and thank you for completing this online disaster response training. Participants in this class, Cleaning Out Flooded Homes, or commonly referred to as mucking out flooded homes, will learn about current best practices and safety procedures for cleaning out, stabilizing, and sanitizing water-damaged homes. Those taking this course should have already been through the UMCOR Early Response Team, or ERT, basic training. As always, we will draw on our basic training as we work with survivors and draw upon the principles outlined in the 7 Basic Things to Remember, which is found in the appendix of the downloaded manual. If you have not done so, I encourage you to pause this video now and download the materials associated with this class. We will follow the basic outline found in the manual, which should also be maintained as a reference manual for when you deploy. Much of the material in this course comes from the booklet Creating a Healthy Home, a field guide for cleanup of flooded homes by the National Center for Healthy Housing. This guide is included in the downloaded manual. The purpose of this training is to learn the steps for properly cleaning out a flooded home, to increase a team's capacity to respond, and to augment and amplify initial ERT training. We will by no means cover all that there is to know on this subject, and we encourage you to seek updated information through other organizations as it becomes available. At the end of this video, we will provide some online sources that may be of use. In this video, we will cover working with survivors, pre-work inspection, site preparation, clean-out or tear-out procedures, and cleaning supplies and materials.
As is always the case with ERT work, we begin by meeting and working with the survivors. We are there to assist them, not to do the work for them or to advocate for them. Remember that we always begin with ensuring that we meet with the homeowners and get them to sign the work order and access to property form if it wasn't completed previously by site assessors. This is imperative to ensure that we do no more harm than what has already been done. If the residents of the home are not the owners of the property, we can still help them by sorting and salvaging property, but we will be unable to do anything to the structure of the house itself. You will still want to get residents to give you written permission to enter the property and to help them. Leave them a copy of the form or fill out another for them to keep. Explain to the residents who you are and how you are able to help them. Have them show you around and explain what happened from their perspective. Encourage them to do what is necessary to prevent further damage and to contact their insurance company and/or FEMA as soon as possible. Make sure that they have documented the damage as best as possible before beginning to clean out the home. Remind them to keep receipts for any expenses and to get permission from their insurer before disposing of anything. Remembering your basic training, this is quite possibly the most traumatic thing in the people's lives. Be patient and take time to listen. Team members are reminded to protect both survivors and themselves by adhering to the conference's child, youth, and vulnerable adult safety principles. Rio Texas Conference Disaster Response has adopted Trusted con Confianza principles and requires teams to comply with the safety policies when deploying. In the process of cleaning out flooded homes, we run the risk of finding ourselves in situations inside a person's home that could be misconstrued. By following trusted guidelines, we minimize the chance of causing more harm, thereby protecting the survivors and the team members.
There are issues that everyone needs to be aware of when working in flooded homes. Structural issues, such as the house floating off the foundation or collapsing walls, might be obvious. Rot caused by sitting water or excessive water being absorbed might not be as noticeable. To check the floor of a home that has been sitting in water, use a scrap of lumber like a 2x4 or a long-handled tool like a crowbar to hit the floor in several places near the door. If there is rot, you will hear a noticeable difference in sound. In homes built before 1978, there is a possibility of lead in the paint. In homes built before 1986, you should assume that there is asbestos in floor tiles or sheeting, insulation, and outside shingle siding. If this is the case, use extreme caution before taking on the job. To avoid carbon monoxide problems, never use fuel-burning equipment inside a flood-damaged home. Team members need to be sure all their shots are up to date. We suggest that all ERTs have current tetanus and hepatitis A and B immunizations. Remember that we always assume that the power is on until proven otherwise. An ERT should not remove wires or outlets in flooded homes, as that is the job for electricians. Mold is generally obvious in a structure, but may also be hidden behind walls or cabinets, or out of sight. People with mold allergies probably should not deploy with teams that are doing cleaning of wet homes. It only takes about 2 days for mold to begin growing and spreading in a flooded home. All ERT members entering a flooded home should begin by protecting themselves. It is highly recommended that each member of the team prepare by purchasing their own personal protective equipment, or PPE, and not rely on there being something that will fit them on a tool trailer. Especially in the immediate aftermath, you will probably have difficulty finding PPE in the affected communities that is appropriate and that fits each person. Minimum recommended equipment includes respirators, goggles, ear protection, appropriate footwear, and gloves. For a refresher on recommended PPE and tools, refer to your ERT manual. A well-fitted respirator with the proper filter offers the best respiratory protection. The filter should be an N95 or N100. The mask should fit snugly against your face, with no air leakage. Note the hard hat with the protruding bill and the wraparound safety glasses. This team member is well protected. Paper masks are not as effective as respirators, but can be worn for short periods of time. Again, they should be N95 or N100. They should be changed frequently, especially if they get wet. A hard hat should be worn anytime there is the possibility of hitting your head on overhanging objects, or when there is danger of something dropping on your head. Heavy rubber gloves work well in wet, sloppy environments. You can also wear nitrile gloves with heavy leather gloves over them.
Before beginning work, the team leader and/or logistics person should assess for safety and ability of the team to accomplish what is needed to do. They should inspect for damage and determine the debris removal plan. Here are some things to look for on the exterior inspection. What does it look like from the outside? Are the walls plumb and level? If not, there may well be foundation issues. Is it safe to enter? Are the floors intact and are walkways unobstructed to the point that you can get access? Is the gas or power on? Does it need to be turned off? Is there sewage in the home from a backed up septic system or broken sewer lines? Check the inspection stickers posted on the front of the house. They will tell you if the house has been inspected and deemed structurally safe. Walk around the house and look for evidence of damage to the foundation. Look for trees or poles that might create a hazard. Look for broken windows or doors and structural damage of any kind. Note sagging roofline that has dislodged the windows on this home. A pre-work inspection of the interior will determine the extent of interior damage and scope of work. Things that you should be looking for and be aware of include: is the electricity on or off? Is the natural gas or propane on or off? Can you smell it? Are water pipes cracked or broken? If so, do not turn on the water. Was the HVAC system affected? Where does the ducting run? Is there damage to doors, windows, or trim? Some can be salvaged if dealt with carefully. What needs to be done with the furnishings? Discarded, salvaged, undecided. Where will homeowners store their salvaged belongings? What tools and equipment will be needed? Is there a debris staging area assigned? Do you need to help set up a storage area? Do you need to make arrangements for electricity such as generators or extension cords? Do you have security for tools after hours? What does this look like? Things have really floated around. You can see the water line on the far wall.
Before work begins, there are some things to discuss with the homeowners, residents, and team members. Do you have the proper tools? Do you have enough supplies? Determine locations for items that will be discarded, saved, and undecided. Think about areas that are secure as you can make it under the circumstances. Unfortunately, there are usually predators lurking to re-victimize survivors after disaster who will steal anything that they can. Where are you going to put all the debris when you remove it from the house? Local codes will determine how you are to sort the debris and where you are to put it. You need to check with local authorities to make sure that you don't create additional problems for the homeowner. This graphic shows how it should be done in a perfect world. There are separate areas for household garbage, construction debris, vegetative debris, hazardous waste, large appliances, and electronics. Note also the placement of the debris on the property. It should not be on the road or near the house. It should not be in drainage ditches or near trees or anything that the property owner wants to preserve. Normally, post-disaster debris is collected by heavy machinery that will not easily differentiate between a pile of debris and Grandma's favorite rose bush. Site preparation. Once you have decided how you are going to do the job, you should take time to prepare the site to do so. Set up your safety and cleaning areas. Ensure that the team members are equipped and using appropriate PPE. Set up and mark the discard, save, undecided areas. Make sure that a clean room is set up. There are detailed instructions on pages 9 through 11 in the downloaded guidebook to help you with this. Before mucking a home, it is important to understand a little bit about mold. After all, one of the main concerns with flooded homes is stopping the growth of mold before it becomes overwhelming. Mold requires moisture to grow and spread, so our main goal should be to do what is necessary to eliminate moisture. Yes, we want to remove all of the mold if we can, but even if we don't get all of the mold, if we eliminate the moisture, the mold won't be able to grow. Therefore, as you muck out the home, be mindful of anywhere that moisture might linger and do everything possible to deal with it. Common areas that sometimes get forgotten are sheetrock behind kitchen cabinets, bath lavatories, toilets, small closets, behind water heaters, and under layers of old flooring. You should also talk with the homeowners about being patient when it comes to rebuilding. Depending on how long the water was in the home, wall framing members could remain wet for weeks. If they are too hasty in covering the walls with drywall, they will trap the moisture and encourage mold growth inside the walls. Suggest that they seek professional advice before rebuilding. Also, there are often donated building supplies available later in the recovery process. By waiting, they may be able to take advantage of some free or cheap supplies.
Finally, you are ready to begin cleanout. Begin by airing out the structure. Open windows and doors at least a half hour before working. Provide plenty of ventilation during work time. A window fan blowing out is a good idea. Remove small items from the floor first. Place items that will be discarded in heavy-duty trash bags to contain the spread of mold. If larger pieces need to be disposed of, move them to the roadside or dumpster with wheelbarrows or dollies. If you must lift and carry, remember to lift with your legs, not your back. Remove appliances only if necessary. Seal the doors with duct tape or rope, or remove the doors before discarding refrigerators or freezers. Be aware that refrigerators that have been sitting for any length of time without power and full of food will be extremely nasty when opened. Carpeting becomes very heavy when it is wet. Cut it into smaller strips before attempting to carry it outside. Once the initial debris is removed from the floor, you can begin to focus on gutting the remainder. It is recommended that you begin in the back of the house and move toward the door that you are using to access the debris collection area. This will keep you from recontaminating an area that has already been cleaned. Cabinets, doors, and trim should be removed to allow access to drywall and flooring and to allow proper drying. Solid wood cabinets, doors, and trim can be salvaged if the homeowner desires. All composite materials, OSB, plywood, or MDF, and hollow core doors should be discarded. For walls with drywall or plaster, you should begin by testing for wicking. Wicking occurs when the water is drawn up the wall, similar to oil in an oil lamp that is drawn up the wick. In an inconspicuous spot, cut a hole in the drywall, 18 to 24 inches above the water line, and feel inside for moisture. If you detect moisture, go a little further up and cut another hole. Continue until it is no longer wet inside the wall. Determine where you want to cut the drywall or plaster. If possible, it is best to do so in 2 or 4 foot increments from the floor. Drywall comes in 4 by 8 or 4 by 10 foot sheets. It's easier and costs less in labor to replace a full or half sheet than to try to piece in smaller pieces. Marking for the cut. Once you have determined the height to cut the drywall, it is time to mark it for the cut. Water is self-leveling, so at least theoretically, you can mark a line at the same height throughout the house. Here are the steps to go by. With a tape measure, determine the height of the cut. Mark the height at the end of each wall to be cut. Snap a chalk line along the wall. Here you can follow as it is done. First, they mark each end of the wall to be cut. Next, they stretch a chalk line between the 2 points. Then they simply snap the line between the 2 points, giving a straight line to follow for the cut. Continue marking the walls throughout the house until all of the walls that need to be cut are marked. Don't forget closets, pantry, etc. Use a straight edge and level in areas that you can't snap a line easily.
There are a variety of tools that you can use to cut drywall. The preferred tools include the utility knife, the rotary saw, and the oscillating saw. No matter which tool you use, the key is to make a straight cut so that the new drywall can easily be butted up to the cut without a ragged seam. Here you can see these tools in action. Utility knife. Power tools can cut quickly and easily, but you may not have access to them. Sometimes the best method is the tried and true utility knife. If you take your time, always use a sharp blade, and don't try to cut through in a single pass. The utility knife is just as effective as power tools. The other advantage is less dust and less noise. The rotary saw. The rotary saw turns a spiral bit, similar to a drill bit, that spins at high speed and cuts through the drywall. You can set the depth of the bit so that it only penetrates through the drywall, thereby protecting pipes and wires in the wall. Care has to be taken to keep the line straight when cutting with a rotary saw, as they tend to drift from the line if you aren't careful. The oscillating saw is another power tool that works well to cut drywall. Consisting of a thin blade that oscillates back and forth, it too makes pretty quick work of cutting walls. The blade depth needs to be monitored, as it cannot be set like that of the rotary saw. The oscillating saw is also helpful in cutting wood trim and even pesky fasteners when needed. These three methods are quick and easy. The upside to them is that they don't produce a lot of dust like circular saws do. Unlike using a reciprocating saw, they also allow you to easily control how deep you are cutting the wall. Always be aware that there will be electrical wires and plumbing inside the walls. The last thing that you want to do is to cause more damage by cutting wires or pipes. You may consider using a circular or reciprocating saw if you are cutting something other than drywall, such as paneling or wooden planks, but extreme caution should be used. Be very aware of what is in the wall and how deep you are cutting.
Begin cutting with the outside walls. They are filled with insulation, which acts like a sponge to trap water. Get it out first so the framing can begin to dry. On the left, notice the straight score cut above the knocked out portion. On the right, notice the nice straight cut line. This will make it easier for the rebuild team to install new drywall. Insulation should be cut at the same height as drywall. Never pull insulation from behind drywall that remains. It is nearly impossible to replace it correctly. Remove all wet insulation from crawl space. On the left, water is trapped behind a vapor barrier and the insulation is saturated. On the right, the weight of the water-logged insulation has caused it to fall. You are not often this lucky. Crawl spaces tend to be tight, wet, and stinky. Be sure to wear a mask, goggles, or glasses, and water-resistant outer clothing. Working in the attic is dangerous because there's not often a surface to walk or crawl on. Use pieces of plywood, OSB, or MDF as temporary surfaces if you can. If possible, and if you are confident that you aren't dealing with asbestos, you need to keep removing layers of flooring until the air can reach both sides of the subfloor. Things to look for: hidden pockets of trapped water and wet insulation, damage or unknown deterioration hidden until uncovered, potential sources of asbestos, additions laid on top of flooring.
Pre-construction treatment. As an ERT, you may or may not be involved in the following steps. If not, it is a good idea to pass along to the homeowners the steps necessary to take prior to reconstruction. The booklet Creating a Healthy Home that is included in your download is a good resource, and you may want to pass along a copy to the homeowner. Prepare the surface. This includes removing nails or screws from the walls that you stripped. Leave the area clean and tidy for the homeowner. Don't leave more of a mess for them to clean up. Vacuum. Using a vacuum with a HEPA filter, clean up all of the debris, especially any mold that came out of the walls. Again, leave the area clean for the homeowner. Wet clean. To remove visible mold from the wall studs, use soapy water and a scrub brush. Don't introduce a lot of water, but just enough to clean the mold and wash it away. Disinfect. Do not use bleach on porous surfaces such as wood. Use a non-bleach disinfectant if necessary. A mixture of bleach and water can be used on non-porous surfaces such as bathroom or kitchen tile. But remember that bleach is toxic, and it is best to not introduce more toxins into the home. Remember, never mix bleach and ammonia together. Treat surfaces. Instead of bleach, it is recommended that you use a product such as Shockwave or Concrobium. These products are specifically designed to stop and control the growth of mold. Please remind the homeowners that ERTs are not professional mold remediators. What we can help them with is only the first steps in drying out their home. Although we sometimes can remove the surface mold and apply some antifungal treatments, these steps only constitute the initial steps necessary. Dry out. Depending on the amount of time that the framing members were exposed to water and the level of humidity in the home, it could take weeks to dry them out sufficiently before rebuilding. Remember that framing that is not sufficiently dried out will encourage the growth of mold inside newly covered walls. Encourage the homeowner to seek professional help in determining when it is safe to rebuild.
Finally, the appendix is a good resource for supplies and materials. We encourage you to read through it and become familiar with what is in it. Refer back to it before you deploy to acquaint yourself with what it takes to properly muck out a home. Also go online and look at resources from other agencies that are involved in disaster response. As we get smarter about disaster response, new technologies and products will emerge. Stay current, and if you find something new, pass it along so that we can share it with others. We are offering a way to muck homes, but there are probably plenty of other options that we can add to our toolbox. This completes the Cleaning Out Flooded Homes course. We hope that this video and the accompanying manual will help you to prepare to serve disaster survivors better. There are no further steps that you need to take at this time. With the contact information that you provided upon registration, we will add your name to the Rio Texas Conference database as having completed this training. Thank you for your willingness to serve in this capacity. If you have any questions and concerns, please contact the Rio Texas Conference Disaster Response Coordinator or the Disaster Response Training Coordinator at the addresses listed on the screen.